The first trip I remember was, I think, 1952. We would go to Yellowstone, and I fell in love with the West and wanted that throughout my life. My original feelings about the West started when I was a kid. You know, it was like, protect this. We had looked at 40 different parcels. In April of 1987, we discovered Sizemore Road, and we got to the top of the hill, and we saw this, what we now call the welcoming tree, sitting out by the road, and it had a for sale sign on it. It was spectacular. The person that was selling was willing to listen to an offer. It was an offer that would help maintain the integrity of the Winter Deer Range, to make sure that this property would be protected. And then in 1990, the home that we were living in at the time, the unthinkable happened. It burned to the ground, and we lost everything.
Part of it was this sense of having lost, we completely lost our past. There was the physical aspects of trying to stay warm, stay cool, stay clean, eat. All the things that go with basic subsistence, where you have nothing. You have a sleeping bag and you have a pair of shorts. And I have my hammer. My hammer was out here. So I could still work.
The depth of your feelings when your house is burned down, the only way you can go is up.
You didn't have things, you didn't have memories of the things. It's all gone, erased in seconds. It's like having to reinvent yourself from scratch. Normally they would not have given us an occupancy permit, but because the circumstances were such and so dire, and our loss was so great, and they were quite well aware of it, being a local community, that they said that we could go ahead and continue to work on their house and continue to live, and then move in and live here at the same time. And of course we had no luggage or anything, so we didn't have a lot of belongings either.
You were able to know that this was going to be your safe harbor moving forward.
It was good to have that experience of having where you brushed your teeth, you washed your hair in 1 cup of water, you cooked with, things you learned to do with very little, and knowing every drop literally was precious. And so we lived that way for about 6 months. The other thing was that we found was because we had to be here for the first time since we bought this place all the time, morning, noon, and night. So we got a real sense of being here before we were just kind of being here periodically. But living here, there was a different relationship with it. It's, in a way, it's like the difference between owning and renting. It had some of that aspects to it, and we started to belong here, and that was sort of the missing piece. So that sense carried over into the critters that were around us. Even though they had been used to me from all the 1.5 years, 2.5 years that I was doing all the building, it kind of sealed our commitment to what our ideals were of being here. It was like, this is real, and this is, now we're part of it. And that upped the commitment of trying to do the right thing by this place. And then there's this 33 acres, which is, we owned half interest in, which turned out to be a bigger problem than we anticipated, because our idea was to actually buy out the whole thing. And that's not how it worked out at all.
Jeb had signed a document with other neighbors that would protect the property against dogs, that would protect the property against all-terrain vehicles, that would maintain the integrity of the Winter Deer Range, and the whole concept of what landscape management means around here.
The whole concept of building a house that I would be the one doing it, I would be the one designing it, I would be the one with the hammer putting it up. I realized I needed a whole lot more information if I was going to be the one working on this and building it. So at that point, I went to the community college here in Bend and took a course that was from the ground up, how to build a house. So it was a definitely on-the-job learning experience.
Leigh and I came, we saw, we recognized that the deed restrictions wouldn't be attractive to everybody. We purchased, we structured the concept of what it was that was going to be built. We built, we honored all of the criteria. What could possibly go wrong?
It was the people who were walking down our driveway towards us, and they introduced themselves and they said, came down and just letting you know that we are buying the place next to you, the property next to you. And after we gave them all the information about the restrictions and the concerns and the overlays and so forth, the codes that they would have to deal with going ahead, we said, come back tomorrow and we'll give you copies. And they did.
To share with them all of the things that I would want to know before I bought, so that they would understand that, hey, we agreed with those. We were willing to live within that confine of respecting the wildlife area overlay. And the whole while we were talking about the importance of those deed restrictions.
And they walked away with the copies, made a few more remarks, and the reason it didn't deter them is because they had no interest in doing any of those things and didn't think that they would have to.
When the other party was going through their building process, showed all the documents to the county and always represented that they would be building in front of that line.
Because the road is fragmentation and the human dwellings are impacting the wildlife habitat, and the theory behind allowing these two building sites to be allowed at all with a conditional use was the fact that they would be close together and they would be really close to the road to mitigate some of the impact on the wildlife. And that was an agreement that was worked out between the county and the developer who owned the parcels and Fish and Wildlife, who had a huge stake in something that was unique to the region, which was creating the Tumalo Winter Deer Range. And having the county go along with it and support it was crucial. And having the people that ultimately live here do what was required of them to make the human impact as little as possible. Some of it was made law, like how far back you should be, which was no more than, by 1990, I think it was, you had to be within 300 feet instead of 400 feet.
We wrote a contract, an agreement with the Dowells so that they could have power to their utility post which was to be 300 feet in from the road, and that they were going to construct between 300 and 400 feet back from the road.
Our property is well within the 300 feet of the road, which is the fragmentation point. And that's why it's important. That is why it's crucial, because had we not done the right thing, had we not gotten the conditional use, had the county not said, okay, but you can do it under these limited circumstances, we would not have been allowed to be here. And that goes for the Dowells too.
This is where we had agreed to have the power come from Sizemore Road with an easement across our property. The utility pole was here, and this is where the Dowells said that they were going to build their structure. Their attorney wrote, they built where they did because they had a better view. The Dowells built their structure where they wanted, which was in gross violation of the restrictions on where they were supposed to have built. And this county allowed it. Why would the county, on one hand, make the Kuhns abide down to the inch of where we could build, and then in a legal proceeding after the fact, the county is virtually asking the Dowells, where would you like to build your house? Pick a spot, any spot. To hell with the restrictions.
The constant throwing out of garbage on the ground, the effects, the footprint of what they were allowing to do, themselves to do, and their tenants to do, basically took away at least a good half of what was present on our property and what we were trying to sustain being on our property. We could never see the night sky. There were 4 big floodlights on all corners of the small structure. They had no shielding. The county came to respond to our complaints. They looked at the lights and they said, well, you need to have these lights pointed downward. But the fact that they weren't shielded, the fact that they were floodlights designed to go in all directions, and the county knew it because we asked them to come out again and look at it. And this went on for roughly 2.5 years until we finally had to go to civil court, and even then it didn't stop.
The other party continued to have the lights on after the judge forced them to pay us a fine for having them on.
Bill and I standing out there, still shell-shocked because this explosion was full of buckshot, which went through the entire house. And it was meant to kill us. It was clearly meant to kill us.
Shrapnel went through the roof.
Had we been sitting in a different spot, we would not be here now.
When their property manager, when their general contractor came onto our property, pounded on our doors, broke into our home, and assaulted us. That was the end. From that point on, we were not interested in making deals with people who were intent on harming us.
It's not every day that living on your own property in your own house. And it's not like you're going about feeding them necessarily, or calling them or naming them or interacting with them. You're just going about your business, but you're doing it in the way that carries with it the intent of this is home to everybody. This is everybody's place. It takes a while to integrate with their rhythms. And not make it so that they're easy prey for something, or to do something that upsets the general balance of how they can be here. The fact of the county turning their backs on us repeatedly and ignoring the things that we relied on to safeguard the very reasons that we were here. The county essentially did a takings of our property, which meant that we could not get permits. We can't sell our house until we have a specific agreement with the landowners that we have been dealing with for all this last 25 years.
Our joint owners have not done their part. They have never participated in anything that has to do with the maintenance of the 33 acres that we're supposed to be jointly maintaining. Deschutes County has been ignoring, has been enabling the other party for decades by not enforcing the laws, the ordinances, the regulations that we followed. This film is designed to help introduce the concept of what it is that we've been fighting for and why we've been fighting.
So the family, we're trying to explain what's going on. They say, what's going on? And we try to explain that. And they say, well, why don't you just sell? Why are you doing this? Why don't you just, it's about an agreement, well, we'll sign an agreement. The county doesn't like this, well then do what they like. It's really hard to explain what's going on because it's first of all, you don't meet people like the Dowells that often. You don't often cross paths with a county that's either inept, corrupt, or both. It's hard to tell people you have a dream. Well, then why don't you let the dream go, they would say. It's just hurting you. There's a lack of integrity in not following through on something that's so important to each of us, and Bill and I, each in our own way, that to give it up means being a coward, being less than we are, not caring, not being able to care anymore about the things we care passionately about, not living up to our promises to ourselves. The behavior that we've encountered to not just to let it go on. It goes against the things that you're taught by your parents that mean something. If there's no right and wrong, what does it matter who you hurt, even if it's yourself you hurt? It's just hard to explain those things in the context of what we're going through. The county decided that they would ignore all the restrictions on the property except the one that demanded that we have an agreement with these folks that the county would then either give us a thumbs up or thumbs down on. We're here to participate in a long-distance magistrate hearing where Bill is at Salem with the magistrate, and I'll be in a room here in the county building with all the subpoenaed folk and the county personnel. I'll be handing out documents as Bill was requesting what they look at in Salem, so this should be quite interesting as far as the logistics alone. It's a hearing on our taxes, basically, but it's a lot more than that because of the things that have gone down with the county. It's supposed to go on for a couple days, probably. So here I am, first morning. Looks like we might hit some snow, at least mountain-wise. So my job was being there, which meant I couldn't be at Salem, and supposedly I was supposed to be able to hear what was going on in Salem because I'm a plaintiff. Apparently that wasn't the case.
Thank you. He said, unless you know otherwise, can be out in the public area, but no one but the witnesses passing.
Okay.
I don't know what the heck happened.
And this is
So that left me in this room at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and they'd shut the door. So I was alone in this room with the door shut. And all I could do was sit there. And it turned out the first witness finally came in at about 1:15 or so. At that point, I got out the documents ready to give to him. At the other end, the county attorney prevented that happening. He said, "You can't have any documents." So all the documents that Bill and I had spent many hours putting together for each of these individual subpoenaed witnesses were not to be handed out. So my whole purpose for being there was gone, and I couldn't hear anything going on at Bill's end. So the only little bits and pieces I got of what was happening in magistrate's court were these comments from the county attorney Laherty.
I don't understand the relevancy of that. I don't see the relevancy of that. I don't see the relevancy of that. I understand the relevancy of that.
Every time Bill would speak even 2 or 3 words, he didn't even get to ask the question he wanted to ask.
Same objection, Your Honor. It's clearly hearsay, irrelevant. On those grounds, hearsay and relevancy, I objected.
That was at the point that I was absolutely, positively sure that the outcome was going to be really useless to us.
Objected admissibility, objected admissibility, objected admissibility.
I gave it until 5:15 and I waited for a cell phone call from Bill that I could go home. And he called me and he told me that it's over. Just at that point, I turned to get my stuff to walk up and pack up and go, and the door was shoved open. So I didn't say anything to her. I picked up my papers, my documents, and my briefcase thing, and I started to walk out the door. And she stepped in front of me. And so I paused and I thought, what's going on? And she scurried down ahead of me, popping her head into anybody who was still in their office. "Well, we did it. The trial's over. We won." And I'm walking behind her. The whole way down the court, it was walking through this phalanx that I had to walk through of pure, really personal ugliness. It's like, why? I don't know the answer to that, but it's ugly. And worst of all is I was not at Bill's back. I didn't have his back. I have here 2 documents from a very good friend of ours, Patricia Gainsforth. Unfortunately, passed away recently. She was a community activist, a longtime friend, a real estate broker, respected in the community. Because we were having such trouble with the county, we asked her if she would please submit something on our behalf, both to the county commissioners and then later on to the magistrate's court regarding property taxation. This was not an easy thing because you didn't go up against the county. She was brave enough and believed in what we were doing enough that she just said, I'm going to do it, and here you are. Dear Deschutes County Commission, William and Leigh Kuhn have asked me for my observations on how the county has dealt with the Kuhns property situation over time. The difficulties began when Jeff and Pat Dowell purchased into the cluster. I sat through and spoke at several hearings and witnessed the contortions the county made on behalf of the Dowells. What the Kuhns have gone through to preserve and protect their deed restrictions and the wildlife use of their land was demeaning, unbalanced, and overreaching. The cost to the Kuhns in real dollars, their time, their health, and well-being has been unconscionable. The county's decisions appear to be punishing the Kuhns, unreasonable, slanted, and dishonoring of the intent for wildlife corridor preservation. Deschutes County has not supported you in your efforts to enforce the few restrictions that were available to you when you purchased your property. At the moment, I don't feel I can give you a true market value on your property, as technically your property is unsaleable until there is an agreement that is signed and recorded. I consider your property valueless until you are able to unscramble the present impasse. Sincerely, Patricia Gainsforth. It's hard for people to believe how many animals are still here and allowing us to be here in harmony with them. And it's just a wonderful place. Bill, for him to have that kind of confidence in me, who had never built anything, to put all of his confidence in our finances into it, that was a gift. Nobody had given me a gift like that before. I give a lot of the credit to him and just holding the line. As I was working on things and people stopping, neighbors stopped too and introduced themselves. And they had questions, so I could say things like, well, they would say, well, why are you so close to the road? And because it blocks the view from the road. And I would have the opportunity to say, the county said we had to be here. And the reason the county said we had to be here is so that we wouldn't disrupt the wildlife. And they said, oh, well, that's good.
I fell in love with the West and wanted that throughout my life. You know, I wanted to be able to enjoy that. My vision of the West started when I was a kid. This is what my parents ingrained in me. You know, it was like, protect this.
There's really no way, unless you've had this experience yourself, there's no way to understand the toll it takes unless you've had this experience yourself. Without detailing the kind of harassment and the length of harassment and the out of nowhere, there's nobody that's going to help you. Not the police, not the DA, not the county, nobody. And what do you do? Bill and I decided to make this video as a last resort.
We don't know how much longer we can
continue to be here. This is the last opportunity we can offer to Deschutes County to at least admit to themselves that major mistakes and bad decisions were made by the county personnel and county commissioners,
beginning with the 1979 decision
to allow owner John E. Barton to create a poorly thought out and severely flawed cluster development on this land. Bill and I do have ideas on a way forward. With the county's cooperation,
we hope we can continue fixing what is needed to finally make this cluster development work as it should.
And that is what we hope for the future of the Tumalo Winter Deer Range.